Hello, everyone, and welcome to Kilowatt. My name is Bodie, and I am your host, and I am back from CES. I'm just going to say that I don't know how I spent 3 days there, and I'm exhausted. I honestly don't know how people spend more than that. When you're in the moment, you don't feel tired. By the time I got to the airport last night, I was absolutely exhausted. And on Saturday night, actually, I took my friend Tony to dinner because she let me stay at her house while I was in Vegas. And we went to dinner and we got back about, 8 o'clock or so. And she's like, you know what? I'm going to go to bed. And I was like, cool. I'm going to do some recording. And I ended up going into my room. I laid down on the bed. I was like, okay, I'm going to take a 10-minute nap. And I just never woke up again. And then I went to CES on Sunday morning. So I've got some things I'm going to do better next time. I've got bigger and better plans for how to handle CES for next year if my wife is okay with me going. So yeah, but it was a good experience. A couple announcements real quick. Just one announcement, really. No, it's two. It's two announcements. I told you I was tired. I want to give a shout out to another podcast, Let's Talk Apple with Bart Busschots. Now, if you are not an Apple user, you might be thinking, well, there's no really good reason for me to listen to this podcast, but you're wrong because one, Bart is delightful, but and two, there's a lot of EV content on this week's episode or this month's episode. It's only released once a month. So I'll put a link in the show notes to Bart's show, and I encourage you to go listen. All right, we have a little bit different schedule for the show this week. We're going to release a show today, which is Monday, a show on Wednesday, and a show on Friday. And that will allow me to clear out all of the CES interviews that I did. All right, that's enough of me yammering. Let's get to the news stories this week. The newly announced Sony Honda Mobility. I kept calling it Sonda, so I kept having to start over. So that's close enough. The Sony Honda Mobility brand Afeela says they plan to add an SUV and another sedan to the brand. The upcoming Afeela concept will eventually make its way into a production car, and when that happens, it'll be powered by the Honda e-architecture platform. Another thing to note is that the Sony Honda Mobility, terrible name, guys. Let's change that to Sonda. Anyway, they say that the brand will be high value rather than premium. That still sounds expensive to me. Patreon supporter and host of the True North EVs, which is currently on hiatus, James asked on Twitter if the Afeela brand would be sold in Honda dealerships. And I think that's a real possibility for sure. But another possibility is that Afeela would be sold online, and then the handover could take place at the Honda dealerships. Dealerships could even display the car and offer test drives. Honda has, a great infrastructure for this kind of thing. Honda is actually going to build the Afeela in one of the U.S. plants. They haven't announced which one just yet. And they have the infrastructure in place to transport cars from one place to another. So it makes a lot of sense with this partnership. Japan will get the first batch of deliveries in 2026, and the U.S. and European markets will begin deliveries in 2026, 2027. All right, that is our one and only news story this episode. Before we jump into our interviews, I do want to thank our Patreon supporters. It was because of them that I was actually able to go. So I appreciate each and every one of you. So let me thank you properly. First up, we have Karen, James, Sierra, my Sierra, Don, Mark, Chip, Elon Muskie, Steve, Howard, Cameron, Nate, Dale, Chris, Jeffrey, Rolando, Ryan, Tommaso, Bruce C., Jessica Kirsch, youtube.com/Jessica Kirsch, Anthony, Isaiah, Bruce W., Joseph, Friendly Sleet 66. By the way, Mr. Sleet, I did send you a Slack invite. If you didn't get it for some reason, let me know. I explained everything that happened in the email. Andrew, Matthew, Alan, Alex, Stephen, and Christopher. Thank you all very much for supporting this show and allowing me to go and cover CES. It was a lot of fun, and I hope to do it again next year. If you would like to join this group of wonderful human beings, you can go to patreon.com/kilowatt or supportkilowatt.com, and you can sign up to support this show for as little as $1. $1 gets you an ad-free experience if you want such a thing. All right, let's jump into our first interview. First up, we have the future of electric boating, which is Candela. We are going to talk to Michael from Candela, and he's going to tell us all about the Candela C8. Now, I need to let you know before we go through the interview that this is an electric boat, but it's special. And we talk about this in the interview, but I want to explain it to make sure everybody's kind of on the same page. The C8 is a hydrofoil. So what happens is after the boat reaches a certain speed, these hydrofoils deploy, and they're kind of like wings. So as the water flows over the hydrofoils, it picks the boat up out of the water. So the hydrofoils are the only thing in the water. This provides a much smoother ride for the people who are on the boat, but also it's more energy efficient to do it this way. So it's a really neat looking boat. When I came across it, I can't remember where exactly it was in the hall. I think it might have been in the North Hall or whatever. But when I came across it, I was like, oh my God, I got really excited because we've talked about the Candela on the show before. So let's go ahead and listen to that interview.
Yeah. All right. I'm standing here with Michael from Candela. Did I say that right?
That's correct, yeah.
And we are in front of the C8 hydrofoil electric boat. Why don't you tell us a little bit about Candela, and then let's talk about the boat.
Yeah, so Candela is a Swedish company, and our mission is to crack the code for long-range boats, electric long-range boats. We're making electric hydrofoiling boats, and that means that they're flying above the water on something called hydrofoils, which are basically underwater wings that lift the hull above the friction of water. So we reduce the drag and the energy consumption by 80% compared to conventional boats.
Yeah. So, how fast do we have to be moving before those hydrofoils activate?
So you floor the boat, and once you hit 16 knots, which is I think 20 miles per hour or maybe a bit less, then the boat will perform an automatic takeoff sequence. So basically, we change the angle of attack of the hydrofoil, and the boat starts to pop up on the foils.
And how high up does that do you get out of the water with the hydrofoils? Because I've seen videos, and it looks like it's pretty high.
Yeah, it's about 2-3 feet above the waves, so it's not that high, but you can still clear 4 feet chop without a problem, because it's an active system that accounts for waves and wind by moving the hydrofoils real time.
Right. So that is very impressive. Now, as far as range goes, are we just cruising around on the lake for a day, half a day? How far can we go? Because we're not really using miles, because this is kind of a luxury pleasure cruise type of a boat. We're not using it to sail from Sweden to Denmark, you know?
Yeah, you could do that though.
Sure.
Yeah. So the range is 57 miles at 22 knots.
57?
57, yeah.
Okay.
And that's typically double the range of conventional boats with a lot bigger batteries. And when we're up and flying, we use approximately 30 horsepower from drawing that from the battery. So that's 24 kilowatts of power. So it's a really efficient boat there. So that's the key to the long range and high speed.
Yeah, it's really hard because this is an audio podcast, but the when this boat gets up and onto those hydrofoils, it looks so cool. It really does. You use the word flying, but it really does look like the boat is flying. And in all intents and purposes, it's using those hydrofoils as wings, like you said, so it is kind of flying. But it looks not real when you're watching it. How does it feel like? Because I would imagine you can compensate for a lot of that. What you said, the swells, the chop, however you want to put it, you can compensate with those foils and make it a much smoother ride. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. So, we created the boat because we wanted a long range at high speed, but you get these side effects like much better sea keeping. So once you're up on the foils, all the noise from the slamming against the hull disappears.
Right.
You don't really feel the waves hitting the hull. It's just smooth and quiet, and you start to hear a lot of natural noises like birds chirping and so on. So it's a very pleasant experience, very civilized ride.
Yeah. So my wife can step on a boat and get seasick. So if she could get past the first few minutes of this ride, I think she would be fine for the rest of the trip.
Yeah.
The first 5 minutes and maybe the last 5 minutes, it wouldn't be pleasant for her. But this would be the only way I think I could get her on our boat. We might have to helicopter out while it's on the foils and it's up and flying, and then drop her in and then helicopter back out when it's all done.
Yeah, actually, we see that there's kind of a new crowd that we can draw into boating. A lot of our a lot of the owners that have bought the Candela never had a boat before because they don't really like power boats.
Right.
Because they're noisy, they're smelly, they cost a lot to maintain, and people get seasick. And, it's not an overly pleasant experience at all times to go on a power boat. But we try to change that with the Candela. So a lot of our clients are people that have never owned a boat, but maybe an aircraft, or they're into, maybe skiing or something different, some kind of sport.
Can you ski behind this?
Yeah, you can. Exactly, yeah. So it's a great boat for water skiing. It's not that good for wakeboarding because there's no wake after it.
Sure. That's problematic.
But for water skiing, except slalom skiing, for example, that's great because you can just ski over the non-existent wake.
Right. That's true. If you want to do the tricks off the wake, that's probably problematic. But this is cool, man. How big's the battery pack?
This very boat that we have here, it's a 44 kilowatt-hour battery pack. So that's fairly small.
That is very small for how big of a boat this is.
So, and we're now working with Polestar, the car maker. So they're going to supply the battery packs to us going forward.
Oh, right. That's awesome. And then any cool technology? I noticed that you have down in the hull, you have like this cool little bed set up, and then you have a toilet right in the middle. That's probably awkward for parties.
Yeah, that's how it is in both. So it's an option. So either you have treat it as a toilet that's placed down there, or you can actually sleep there if you want to as well. So we have the camper option. You have the amenities that you would have on any other 28 feet boat, but it happens to be electric and flying. But in terms of technology, I mean, we have over-the-air updates, so the boats continually gets better. We can troubleshoot it remotely. And of course we have the intelligent flight controller, which makes this journey so smooth. And I should also mention the motor, which is the Candela Seapod, a submerged motor. So the motors are actually under the water in this missile-shaped pod, directly driving the propellers. And having the motors under the water means that we don't have any transmission, so there's no noise from the transmission. There's no need for maintenance, no cooling system that has to be flushed. So you can just run it just like
very little energy loss.
Yeah,
very
exactly.
little.
Yeah,
that's cool. Man, I had one other question that I can't quite remember what it is off the top of my head. So, is there anything I should have asked you that I didn't ask you? Like, you've probably talked to a lot of people, and there's probably one thing that everybody's missing about this boat or electric boats in general, or
I mean, just like I think worth mentioning perhaps is that I think we're going to see we have 150 orders right now for this boat, so it's the best-selling electric boat in the US, and I think we're going to see a lot of foiling boats in the future, because if you want to go fast and you want to go far on electricity or water, then hydrofoiling is the thing.
I agree. Do we have a price on this?
Yeah. So it's $395K for this all carbon fiber electric boat. And deliveries start this spring.
They start when?
This spring.
Yeah. I have to say, man, I'm super stoked about the boat. It looks really cool. When I walked up, because there's booths everywhere, and I just kind of walked around the corner and I saw it, and I actually got excited. Not only did I get excited because I was like, oh, I know this brand, but I got excited because the boat looks really good in real life.
Thank you.
Yeah, you guys did a good job. Thank you very much, Michael, for coming on.
Fantastic. Thanks.
Oh, I should ask, if anybody wants to order one of these or learn more about your company, how do they do that?
You go to Candela.com.
Candela.com, and I'll also put a link in the show notes.
All right. Everybody at CES was so nice, or at least everybody that I interacted with was so nice and so generous with their time. And Michael was no exception. We chatted for a few minutes before the interview and a few minutes after the interview. And the folks at the Candela booth were very busy. There was a lot of people getting on this boat to take a look at what they have going on. As a matter of fact, I took my shoes off to go on the boat and discovered that I was wearing two different socks. So that was embarrassing when you go to ask for an interview and you walk up there with one black sock and one gray sock on, and they're obviously different. But nobody said anything, so it's nice of them. Next up, we have Tuomo of Verge Motorcycles, and he is the CEO of Verge Motorcycles. And we are going to hear about the new TS Ultra and the TS Pro. These motorcycles look like they were designed by Batman. Just a super sleek, stylish motorcycle. If I rode a motorcycle, and I'm not responsible enough to ride a motorcycle, because 90% of the time I would be fine, and there's 10% of the time when I get in my feels and I would just be really dumb and I would hurt myself or somebody else. So, but if I could ride a motorcycle, if I could be trusted to, I think this would be the motorcycle that I would want to ride. It is such a great looking bike. So let's go ahead and jump into that interview.
All right. I'm here with Tuomo, and you are the CEO of Verge, and you guys have a really cool electric motorcycle. Why don't you guys tell me about the company, and then we'll kind of go into the bike.
Yeah. So, what we do have here is the full electric motorcycle. So we are a European company. We are Finnish people based in Finland. We are having assembly plant in the next country, which is Estonia. I'm living in Monaco, so we are having all the Europe covered. So we are a startup. We started 2018. We wrote the first bike 2018, and now this is finally the product. So this is already type approved, so homologated, so street legal in Europe. We are already delivering and selling this in Europe. And here in Las Vegas, we are showing the bike first time in US. And we are having our plans and action to have first bikes to be delivered late this year to US market. So, yeah.
So I just want to say, this looks like something Batman would ride. Like, it looks super cool. I don't want to step on where you're going with this, but this bike right here, there's a person listening to my podcast, and we share electric motorcycles back and forth with one another, and his name is James, and James is going to love this bike. But keep going.
Yeah.
I just wanted to give James a little love.
So this is a full-size bike. So this is not a scooter or anything like that. This is having 500 pounds total weight. This is having 20 kilowatt-hour battery, which is biggest in the market. This is having same tires as Ducati Diavol, so that is really full-size bike, not replacement for that, but same wheelbase, more or less, and so on. So this is having all what you can ask for a full-size bike. This is having fast charging, so we are having 400 volts battery voltage, so you can fast charge on a combined CCS as cars. We are having color touchscreen there nearby where the gas tank is in the gasoline bikes. So we are having touchscreen. You can set up torque demand, so power. You can set up the slipper control. We are having that also here. We are having cruise control.
Okay.
So we are having all the good things you can ask for a bike.
Does the bike have navigation or anything like that, or will it connect to your app?
So that is we can update the software. So the first units we are now delivering to European market, they are not having navigation yet, but we can OTA over there update those. So that is coming, but actually not yet there in European bikes.
Okay, and I noticed you're using an in-wheel hub, which is great for efficiency, and you're not going to lose anything from the motor to the wheel. It's on the wheel.
Yeah, surely we are having many different sides when we are talking about total company. So we are, as a company, we want to have that kind of company that we are sustainable and responsible. So in this bike, there is no oils to change. There's no cooling liquids which are leaking and so on. But especially to the customer, where there's no maintenance but brakes and tires.
Sure.
So that is so simple to use, so that you don't have to change the oil all the time, or there's no filters in this vehicle. So that is just so easy to maintain, and that is then changing the game.
Is there anything special you have to do with an in-wheel hub when you change the tire? This is actually something that
Yeah.
I've never even thought of.
Now when we are on this side, you can see that take that boomerang-shaped side of the fork or arm away. Then the bolts which are on the rim, which is carbon fiber rim, the last bolts on the rim, then you can slide it off like a barrel over the other barrel. So that is very simple. Then you don't have to adjust the chains or anything like that.
Okay.
Then put it back and that's it. And the motor is still there all the time, solid, and that is not losing anything from the motor. So that is different.
That's really well designed. Let's talk about specs on this. It's got about a 233 mile range.
Yeah, we are having best specs on the market. So this is having that one. Actually, the next bike is having the top specs. We are standing on the other side of the other bike. So that
this
is having
the Pro.
Yeah, this Pro model is having 100 kilowatts output power. So that is 137 horsepower. And the other one is having 150. So that is 201 horsepower. That is the output power. And then we are having 20 kilowatt hour battery package here and 21 kilowatt hour battery package there on the other model. So that is having faster charging cells and something different in the battery pack. We are also doing the battery pack in our factory, so we know what is inside.
Right. And the TS Pro is like 0 to 60. We're standing on the other side of the specs, but it's like 0 to 60 in 3.2 seconds.
Yeah, 3.5 seconds.
3.5.
Yeah.
And then the is that the Elite? What was the
Ultra model?
Ultra.
That is 2.5 seconds. Yeah. So that is already there. That
is faster than I want to go.
That is then the slippery control is always there. That hey, I can't do more because the grip between the tire and the asphalt or tarmac, that is the limiting factor.
Okay, and this is a really easy question, but how fun is this to drive? It seems like it's going to be a blast.
Yeah, that is so that it's difficult to explain when you are having no vibration, there is no noise, and that is just accelerating like crazy machine in the fun park or something like that. That hey, I can't hear a thing, but that is accelerating like a rocket. That is fun to ride, and especially when we are having the motor there in the rim. Now there's no chains and all that, but that is benefiting that now the battery is very low because that is motor is not taking place there. And then that is so easy to handle in the corners and so on. So that is good to ride on the fast speeds, but especially in the corners in the city, you don't have to concentrate on how to handle this. There's no gears, so you can always accelerate as you want. And also that is low center of gravity.
Yeah. And for those who, because you can't see this, the battery pack is where the motor would be on a traditional ice bike. How much for the Pro? What will that set you back?
So we are now selling in Europe, so we can say that we are the selling prices in Europe is 29,900 euros in Europe, and in US you can make your preliminary reservation. How to say that? Yeah,
Now I don't know what it is.
Yeah, but that is very correct. Lawyer is squeezing me if I'm saying it wrong. But that's in English like that. So you can go to our website and make $100 reservation, and the price what you are seeing there is 29,900, and that is also the price for the US spec.
Okay, price. I think that's a good price. Do you have pricing on the Ultra?
Yeah, that is 45,000. Also same as I mentioned it, same in Europe and same in US. That is in this moment euro and dollar is like 1-to-1.
Sure.
So we are having same numbers.
Man, that is cool. How would people find your website? Where were they going to go?
That is vergemotorcycles.com.
It was vergemotorcycles.com.
Yeah.
Oh, Tuomo, thank you very much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks a lot.
You know what? Is there anything I should have asked you that I didn't ask you?
Yeah, that is more or less it. I would like to say that hey, this we are living in Europe. I'm living in a city where there's too much noise and also too much smoke, and that is something that we are not saying that this is changing in one day, but one bike at a time. And especially the next generation, they are wanting to show to daddy that hey, I want something different that you are having, and they are changing the world, and we are here to offer that hey. This is fancy looking bike, which is having just top specs, and this is very sophisticated.
Yeah, I hope to see these on the road soon here in the US.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, everybody, that is it for me this week. I want to thank Tuomo and Michael for coming on the show and sharing with us what they're up to. I'll put links to both companies in the show notes so it's easy to find. And yeah, I think that's it. If you want to support me on Patreon, go to patreon.com/kilowatt. You can find me on Twitter, which is at 918digital. And I'm also I also have an email, and you can email me. It's Bodie, BODIE, at 918digital.com. It's getting towards the end of the day, and I'm losing my mind a little bit. All right, everybody, thanks so much for listening, and I will talk to you on Wednesday.